Alright guys, back again. Got you switched over to the other camera, which you guys may not understand why I said that because I have no idea when this video is going to be out. But we're on part 5 of the Q&A here, out of who knows how many. And let's keep moving. Abel Villalobos says, how long did you train before you believed you could properly implement the RTS principles into your training? Also, did you purchase the RTS manual or how did you learn the RTS method? I'm currently doing an upper and lower body split, but want to eventually be able to do the lifts at a higher frequency by incorporating upper and lower body training in the same day. So what can I do to bring my work capacity to be able to do that? To answer the first part of the question, it took me a long time to feel like I was able to start implementing the RTS principles, and most of that was because I had a very developed personal ego, and that's something. You cannot have an ego if you want to run reactive training and auto-regulation effectively, and I had to really focus on killing that, and it was bad. Even when I was aware of the fact, it was really hard for me to do that, and you have to be able to put aside what you'd like to do necessarily and focus on what you need to do for that day based on how the lifts are going, not on how you're feeling, not on what you think you should be able to do, but on how you are actually reacting to your body. So it took me, after I learned about it and wanted to know more about it, it took me about 2 years to make the switch from percentage-based programming into RPE things. And I was doing, honestly, I was doing more frequent type things with upper-lower in the same day when I started doing Sheiko routines. So that was not as foreign to me when I switched to the RTS. I did purchase the manual. I think it's important that whenever you're getting a large amount of information from someone who's willing to put it out there and it's a big source of income for them, it is respectful and appropriate to support them in their endeavors and pay for the materials that you use. I believe that I also try to pay for every single ebook I have access to. I think it's really important. If it's given away freely or if the information is available freely, then that's one thing. But finding torrented or ripped and uploaded copies of things just seems a little unethical to me, and so I think you should make sure that you give people the credit and the respect that they deserve by paying for the product that they're producing. That's just my opinion, and I think there's others who share it, but that's where I stand on it. So maybe a little tangential considering what your question actually was. That's how I learned about it, but for the most part, like the details of it. For the most part, I learned about it online and reading up on everything I could, following along with a lot of Mike DeShearer's stuff, and listening to other people who talk about the reactive method and utilize it in their training. You're always a student of your sport and learn as much as you can, and if you want more in-depth stuff, it's appropriate to contact the person or utilize the things that they have for sale. You're currently doing upper-lower split. How do you, if it's working for you, don't change it yet, because I think if, using upper and lower in the same day is great and it helps with meat conditioning, but if you're moving forward in that direction, it gives you somewhere to go to. And I talked about this earlier when it comes to programming for beginners and intermediates. A lot of people want to jump right to that as soon as possible and try to do advanced type techniques like doing things in the same day. But I think as long as your work capacity is okay, you can do that. I think that it is appropriate. There's some times when you can start to incorporate it, but I don't think you want to make that the mainstay of your programming. Maybe do some different microcycles. For this cycle, do an upper-lower split, and in the next cycle, maybe try to squat twice a week and see how that works for you, and bench and squat on one of those days, and slowly add it in, because then you can develop the tolerance to it, but you're not halting your progress or making it lurch forward without being able to have it sustainable, because the only way to improve is to add things to what you're doing as far as volume or intensity or frequency or something. You can't do to stay at the same level unless you are severely overtrained. Removing stuff from your programming will not make you better at it. You have to add things to it, and so that's why you get to a high level and you have this really high work capacity and you're squatting and deadlifting and benching multiple times a week. What are you going to add to get better from that point on? Because you have to figure something out. So that's just where I stand on that, I guess. Nathan Lee, what template of Sheiko did you run for 2 years? Currently running 29 myself, probably will run for a year or so, maybe going to add a couple technique days in each week. Any advice on this type of training? By the way, you need an Instagram, mate. Thanks, huge fan from Australia. Joke's on you, Nathan. I got an Instagram like 4 days ago, so boom, take that. It's getting late, guys. I'm sorry. It's a couple videos in here. I didn't run one of the numbered Sheiko programs. I liked the CMS programs, and I did exactly what you're not supposed to do. I jumped into the one that had the highest volume, the highest frequency, the highest intensity, everything that I could into one because I was excited. And so I did see that lurch forward in the progress, but then it halted really quickly. I would suggest doing it the way that everyone talks about. Run the 29, and then run, I think it jumps to 37 and then back down, and there's a lot of people out there that are putting the information of how to run those templates effectively. I have never run a program the way it was originally written or intended to be run. I have always been very, very, very keen on the idea of altering it to me, and so I cannot give cookie cutter program advice to people other than start light, add weight as you get better, and add frequency and add volume as you need to. But that's really what it comes down to. Just run the program. If it's working, then keep running the program. If it stops working or it slows or you have something in your mind that like, hey, maybe this idea will work better, go ahead and try it. You still have time to experiment. When you're beginning your intermediate, it's always time to try the ideas that make sense to you. And that's the qualification. It has to make sense. Research it, figure it out, but if you talk yourself into it and you justify it and you're like, that sounds like it's legit, maybe I'll try it. That's how you innovate in the sport, and that's how you become better and try things that maybe other people weren't clever enough or weren't creative enough to think about, and that's how you become better once you get to those levels where everybody's doing the same thing because it's all they can think of that works. David Liang. Do you have any tips for the regular smolov program for the squat, and what are the cues for bench, squat, deadlift? Okay, so when it comes to the tips for the regular program, honestly, if you can go without it, then I don't know if it's something that I would super suggest for everyone. It is very intense. Most people that run smolov end up not finishing it. I would say a majority of people. But if I'm going to give you a tip and you really want to bring your squat up and that's your main focus, the first round of it, don't add extra stuff in. I feel like I was definitely an outlier in that situation. I feel like my experience with all the Russian high volume and high frequency work really prepared me better than most people for that kind of a shock program where you're doing something that's so high frequency and such an overreaching thing. And I really think that you should not try to add a whole bunch of extra stuff in the first time you're running it just to play it on the safe side. Also, when you put your first number in, think lighter. Take 10% off of your squat if you're going to be running it off of that, because you will not need maximal loads for that workout to be hard. The weight itself is not going to be the limiting factor. The amount of volume and the lifts that you're doing and the frequency of it all combine, and you get really good at that motor pattern, and it builds the motor pattern, and that is how you progress with smolov. Everyone says, oh, it's so intense. You should take the weight off the bar, and you should focus on becoming a better squatter through this process, not necessarily crazy amounts of stronger, because becoming a better squatter will carry over to your actual training. If you just get stronger and peak for it, yes, that's going to be there for a while, but that strength does dissipate because, like I've been talking about, you can't maintain that level of volume and frequency in your regular training to keep improving. So the strength will drop off a little bit, but if you made the technical improvements that should be the key and what you're aiming for in that, then you will have a much more successful run as a powerlifter after running smolov. And I really do believe that, and I think it's really important, and people miss that all the time. Like, I want to get crazy strong on squat. Yeah, get to be a really awesome squatter and then focus on building from there. But if you have the opportunity to improve your motor pattern, that should be the primary focus of that program, in my opinion. Again, that's just how I look at it. My cues for the squat, bench, and deadlift differ every single time. Whenever I find a weakness, that's going to be my new cue, and that's going to be the thing that happens. And most of them I've been doing for so long that the cues that would be most helpful to other people are not the cues that I need for myself, because there's so much of an ingrained motor pattern with a lot of these that I don't have to cue on the things that I would cue someone that I'm training. When I'm personal training and I have a client, I'm going to be telling them different things than I'm thinking in my head for my squat, because they're still developing a motor pattern that is much less ingrained. Whether or not my technique on anything is what other people would consider good or perfect or close to those things, I still have a motor pattern developed, and so I have to, while I'm pursuing perfection in my own technique, I have to do a couple of odd cues possibly. The basic ones that I would say for a squat, make sure that you're braking, depending on the shoes you're wearing and the kind of squat you're doing, make sure you're braking appropriately, whether at the knees or the hips or both at the same time. Chest up is always pretty helpful. Keeping your back tight in everything can be helpful. Making sure that once you get to the point where you're shifting in the force curve, whether that's right off the ground in a deadlift or coming off your chest in the bench press or coming out of the hole in the squat, always focusing on accelerating. People forget that. They get comfortable in the grind where they say, okay, I think I have it. You should always, once that momentum shifts and is going the other way, you should always be pushing to try to speed the bar up as you go, regardless of what the weight is. And that's how you put maximal force onto the barbell, and that's where you create your actual bar speed. It's not from taking a sub-maximal load and pushing it like crazy fast, because that's not going to challenge you. But if you're under something that's heavy and you're moving it and it's going slow but you're trying to go faster the whole time, you're going to see your bar speed go up. So I hope that helps, and I hope that those were possibly positive ways to look at it and helpful in your own quest in the technique. Thank you guys for watching. Went a little bit over our time on this one again, but I'm just trying to get through these questions, and we've still got a lot to go. So I believe that was number 6. Look out for the next Q&A coming up on another day when I don't have a training commentary or some other video for you guys. I hope you're having a great day. Please leave a like, rating, comment, subscribe if you found the video informative, entertaining, any of that good stuff. Have a great day, and I will talk to you soon. Bye.